is one of the most unusual architects. Dr. Muna Zakaria always sees that buildings without people are bodies without souls. That's why she chooses to live between buildings and people. How did the relationship between Dr. Zakaria and her absolute love for the Islamic architecture develop?
I think what was most exciting for me that we left Cairo to Maadi when I was very young. I was 1 year old. And my grandmother was in Abdin. And I think this for me was the magic box. I was going all the time to her, and the street, I was I would say very affected by the people, the houses, how the people in the street go back and come, the bicycles, and the old house. And there was something, a kind of flavor, very special flavor, for me anyway. And Maadi was like, I wouldn't say sterilized box, but everything is clean, garden, bicycle. We were in a very clinic place, I would say. But life was around Abdin, was downtown, was in the market of Souq El-Ithnin. And I think I remember very well, my level was exactly the level of the very low level. So I see everything on a very, my horizontal line is very low. So I remember a lot of things still. And in the end, it was the magic box. Because every time there is something new, a lot of excitement, a lot of flavors, a lot of smell. And it has been all the time like that, going back to Maadi, coming back to Abdin, the discover of Cairo. And I think I was in love of Cairo, and I still love Cairo. It is this very, very, very special town. There is nothing like Cairo, but we don't see it. It's just, and of course, I was playing all the time in the garden, so all the time I was playing in the mud and in the sand. And this also, when I see parents asking the children to stop doing with mud or sand, I think it's a magic material, because it excites all the imagination of a child. All of us are born with a big imagination, but all what we live stop this imagination. And the imagination by itself is the real creation, the real discovery. And whatever we got actually in our life, in the beginning was an imagination. From the computer, all the medicine, all the theory of science, everything coming from imagination. But when we stop all kind of imagination, this is stopping what God have given to human being, to help human being. I was in love with history until the secondary school, and in the end I felt I I don't know why. I know perhaps playing in the mud, playing in the sand, all this magic aspect of Cairo with all these facades, small balcony, the difference between things. I decided to make architecture, but I wanted to make history also. So I got the feeling that I have to go back to history and architecture, and I didn't know from where to begin. And I went for architecture, and exactly in my year of diploma, I began to work in the French Institute of Archaeology. And they asked me something very, I got the choice also to work in the pharaonic sector or the Islamic sector, because there was a big project. We took about 12 years after that to make all the elevation, all the documentation of the civil building in Cairo, medieval period and the Ottoman period. And I got the feel that I want Cairo. So I choose the Islamic part or the medieval part of the history. And I think this was a beginning of this combination between the history and the real discovery of the town began there. Because I think that during these 12 years or more, I went all over the street, haras of our medieval town. And when you make the documentation of a building and take every measurement and go back and drawings and all that, it makes something completely different than just looking or feeling. It's more, I think, because it takes more time, so you got more deeply in things. And I think this 10 years trip in the medieval town of Cairo, this what learned me everything. I learned that people give every day, every second a lot. That when we talk about our civilization, 4,000 years, 6,000 years, the civilization, it's not only static in the archaeological site, it's living in every human being, but how to get it out and how to touch it. So the magic box became bigger, and I think until now, sometimes there is more discovery to do in this town. There is a wall, you didn't see it. There is there is no end to what we can learn from this town. And I'm talking only about the medieval town. I'm not talking even about the Khedivit Cairo or downtown, what we know all. But and you discover the continuity of the history and the continuity of the civilization. And I remember something was very main point in my vision or in my feeling of my work. I was sick for some months once, and I couldn't go out. So I decided to draw the map of Cairo by my hand. I don't know why, but it's just time. But it was a discovery, because when I went the 2-meter map and I began from Fustat, I found there is one line is related Fustat, the site of Fustat, until the old Heliopolis, University of Heliopolis. So this was a main street already. And this street was the key of Cairo after that. And all the developing until today is done through this axe. And Fustat was on the Nile, but in the other side was Memphis. So when you take Fustat, العسكر, القطائع, القاهرة, and even until today, Heliopolis, the new Heliopolis, you feel that we are going parallel to the Nile, of course, and to the north. And this piece, or this way, has been even clear until the map of the description, Description de l'Égypte. And it's marvelous because you discover how life have been developed and how every civilization came and take over, and it is one civilization. So the feeling of our history became completely different. There is no, sometimes when we talk about Pharaonic history, Coptic history, Islamic history, I'm sorry, it's Egypt history. It's one link, one artist, one architect. So the chain go from a form to another form to another form, but I wouldn't say another form, but it is some differentiation in the form itself, some adaptation, we can say. It's very important. It was very important for me to understand this line. And from the other side, I discover how much we don't study our history. Because I was in love of history as a student in the secondary school, in the even primary school. And when you go to the real books or to original books, what we call أمهات الكتب, the mother books, if I can make the translation, you discover how they didn't give us our story. So there is a lot of pride in the story of Egypt. But when you take the book of the history book of primary school and secondary school, you discover that it's very superficial. There is nothing to be proud. Names, the civilization go far away from names and royal part, or it's what is attached to the human being, to our society, to what we eat, to what we build. Nothing of that is in our books for the children. And you discover how much it is bad to discover that when you are 25, why you didn't see it when, or more to clarify this when you are young, more young, a child even. I think we need still to work a lot to discover ourselves. We didn't discover ourselves. When I was talking about history, I was talking also, or specifically, what is very important and we didn't know about it, or it's not well documented or well in our imagination, in our head, the social history, and this is very important. And I remember one of the part of Makrizi which I love really, and you discover a lot of small item, is when he made the description of the market in the 14th century. It is something amazing because every product was have a market by itself one day, or in a place by itself. For an example, how many cheese we know in Egypt. He described that Egypt, in this market in Al-Qahira, there was 350 kind of cheese. And the day of the market of the cheese, the street were closed buy the nuts because they were enveloped the cheese by these nuts. So 350 kind of cheese in Egypt, in Cairo, in the 14th century. Where are these? How many kind of bread we have? Even the kind of bread, we were using the maize. We were using, I don't know how we call it in English, in الشعير. We were using a lot of kind of bread. Where are these bread? Why we stopped to do our bread? Not only because we don't produce enough corn, no, it's not only because of that. Because the conscious of ourselves, of what we have been doing, there is no crane, no, there is no continuity between the grandmother and the daughters and the big daughters. This continuity, it's a must. And even in a social way, we are talking all the time about tradition. This is the tradition. This is the real tradition. The traditional are in a very small thing. You can, if you are in any airport, you can get Egyptian by their face because there is some aspect, some feeling. And this feeling is very important. And this feeling is in our bread. We don't do our bread in-house. If you ask any, very few peasants are doing still the bread. And it's less and less and less. Because it's easier to go and buy. Yes, but the other value nobody is talking about. We have to learn in school what kind of bread our ancient were doing, our grandmother in the beginning of the century. So the bread, the food itself, a lot of kind of food. Now when you ask the young about them, they, I wouldn't say they don't know them. They think even the Egyptian patisserie. In Damiette still they are doing most of this patisserie. And these are the tradition. And this is very important to keep, like architecture, like every item, to know it, because this is the roots from where we can get new things. And it is the same problem of architecture. We don't study our roots at all. But from where we are getting a new Egyptian architecture, we are copy-paste, I would say. So the item of the civilization is a lot.
She had been working on several restoration projects, among which is the famous Beit el-Hirrawi. She abandoned research and took her first steps in architecture and restoration. Then she took the responsibility of the rehabilitation of the city of Fustat, which was known for its pottery production globally and needed to be revitalized once more to regain its historical importance. So a project was initiated between the Ministry of Tourism and the Italian Cooperation in Cairo to design and construct a 12,000 meter square pottery production village influenced by the traditional architecture of Old Cairo.
When I was doing Old Cairo, and by luck I have been doing or a part of a group who have been doing a book in the end of the 70s about the Fustat and the pottery production in Egypt. When in 2000, we were doing the rehabilitation of the fustat, in my mind to develop this industry or this artisanal. So we discovered that we brought the people of IKEA who are buying a very big quantity of pottery every year all over the world. And they told me that the quality of the Egyptian pottery and the Vietnamese pottery are the best in the world, and especially the Egyptian one, in the quality and in the price. The only problem in the story that when we make the production, we don't have any kind of design. And the design is not related to our tradition item. I was asking all the people, the artisanat, during the project, go to the museum, go to the Islamic museum and look to the pottery, go to the Pharaonic museum and look to our pottery. And the reaction was slowly. 1 year ago, so after near 10 years, I went and I was shocked. I found very beautiful and nice item. And they told me, in the end, we accept your advice, and we discovered that the roots are in the museum. So, an example, one of our major problem for all kind of artisanat, there is no designer. It's not a joke to be a designer. It's somebody who learn exactly the original part and learn how to make kind of adaptation from the original artisanat to our adaptation for our daily life now. So we have a lot of potential market, a lot of rich, it's very rich, I would say, but we have to work on and not to produce kind of kitsch. An example now you can see in any pottery shop, a mug with a window. But it's very kitsch, I would say, but if people buy the kitsch, of course the artisanat will produce it, but this cannot go very long. This cannot make a real production, Egyptian production for a pottery. And in the same time, I saw some Egyptian pottery in Europe stamped with made in China, and it was made in Cairo, made in fustat, because we are not trying to guarantee our site. There is no site to buy Egyptian pottery. But I still hope it will come. Everything, step by step, it will come. It will come. If the people decide to have that.
مسابقة السيرة النبوية. اشترك معنا في المسابقة واكسب 2000 جنيه كل 10 أيام. أين نزل الوحي على سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم؟ 1. غار ثور، 2. غار حراء، 3. جبل أحد. اتصل بنا من أي محمول على 1416 أو من أي خط أرضي على 09814، وجايزتنا 2000 جنيه كل 10 أيام.
Dr. Muna Zakaria studied the fine arts at Hilwan University in 1974. She took her MA in architecture from the Royal Danish Academy for the Arts in Denmark in 1976 and from the University of Aix-en-Provence, Marseille, France, 1981, and she had her PhD in Islamic architectural history.
I think a lot of obstacles are facing a woman if she is doing a real career or if she is working really, and I think it is a very deep. It's not only in Egypt. I think it's a little bit international. Very, very few society have been passing these feelings. But of course, any woman has to give perhaps 10 times more than a man. And so you get any reaction. For me, when you are supervising your own field, you are working, all the field are men. Now I understand, now and from some years I understand very well that they never accept how could a woman understand better than I, an example, or she can supervise my work. And perhaps it has to be taken little by little. You have to have some, I would say not gentle, but not in a direct way. Because there is a social problem. And the social problem comes mostly from the frustration of the man. God have given the woman something. She is a mother. So the frustration, if she doesn't do anything, she is a mother. For the men, it's not the same problem. And I think most of our men in the work, in creation, there is a lot of frustration. So this frustration can come very quickly in the face of a woman. And it needs long time and understanding from the woman and the man. And I think the role of the woman and the girls during the revolution, for example, how we can deny this? Who can deny this? Who can deny the role of the mother? Nobody. There is nothing to be denied, but we want to deny because it's easier to deny. It's easier to say, that's a man problem. No, it's not a man problem. And when sometimes people say the woman is your mother, your sister, your wife, yes, it's true. But also she can be guiding a work. And this happened during all the history, even the Islamic history, even the Pharaonic history. There is no problem. But the problem are, of course, a lot of things. It's more complex than what I'm trying to tell, but if you want to have a deep vision, it's a frustration, a lot of frustration.
Throughout her eventful life, Dr. Muna worked at the Institut Français d'Archéologie Orientale, the IFAO, as an assistant to Bernard Morey, drawing up the plans of a large number of monuments on El Mu'izz Street and the neighboring area. She was also the head of many other projects, among them upgrading Abdelmegid al-Labban Street, Old Cairo, renovation and upgrading of Al Beit al-Path, Bab al-Azab recreational project, Qanatir Children Museum, Qanatir Irrigation Samples Museum, and the Water Museum in Aswan.
Just before the revolution, we have been finishing a small village. I wouldn't say small, it's a big village in Aswan, in a place called Al-Aqab. And I think I loved this project very much because it was directly to the people. And we stopped 2 months before the revolution. And my dream was after, there is, I wouldn't say a national responsibility in a way for an architect. And I wanted really to do something serious in what we call informal sector. And I made a trip. And perhaps it's very important to tell you this trip. I went to the Ministry of Habitation to knock the door. I say, okay, I want to make such work. I have this experience of Old Cairo, Aswan, Damiette, El Khalifa. Okay. And I think it's time, by the national responsibility, to do such a work. So I discovered that the system itself, the existing system, cannot do any work in informal sector. Because if you are an architect, the architect and the urban planner cannot work only on paper, on office. It's not true, because these people, these paper are related to a social human being. So we have to depend more to the field. For our system, what we have actually, you do the drawings. The first question, how we can do drawings for rehabilitation? It is a part of the work. But the other part of the work, you discover it through the work itself. The second part is we are trying to rehabilitate the life of the human being. So whatever we think in our office, it is something, and the reality is something else. So we have to be very close and to really touch to the field. But our system, the structure of the system cannot, it's not enough that I go, I do the drawings, I give the drawing to the contractor do the work, and I can have a look, even every day. It is something else. To go, it's a field work. And I cannot accept. The contractor is executor. He do the job, what we ask him to do. But the system, the actual system, give him all authority. Even he can change your design without any problem. And this is not rehabilitation or developing the life of the people. Because when we go to informal sector, you are not only considered to make rehabilitation to the building, to the toilet, to the infrastructure. You have to feel the people. What are the problems of the people? What they are working? why they are in this site and not in another site. So the behavior and the system we choose to make this work is not at all adapted to what we want to do. And because of that, I think that we don't do really this job. I was trying to convince them that we have to work in the field, but the system itself, because the ministry do the plan and the drawings, give it to the governor give this to a contractor. Where are the life of the people? Where is? It doesn't exist in the map. So we need a new system. When we talk about rehabilitation, this system cannot go. It's not functional at all. And the first reaction when you see any informal sector, bulldozer. No, bulldozer is very expensive, more than what anybody can imagine. It's expensive. And if even we do an economic study, you discover that you have to do rehabilitation step by step, and to make all the town to get developed, and developing not only the building, the activity, the infrastructure system, everything related to the life of the people. One of the big company of developing decide to share in this work and to take a part of their benefit every year for the developing of one of the informal sector. And we contact, of course, the government of Cairo, and we are very close to the informal of the government of Cairo, and they advise us a lot of issue, and we decide, because this is very important to me, they propose to us to do El Assal. And when I went to El Assal, I felt I couldn't imagine, and nobody can imagine, that this exists in downtown in Cairo. And in the same time, it's 200 meters from the rail station. So it's really downtown Cairo. And the people are living like if we are in a ghetto, another word. Meters between the main street and the area. And we began to work. Of course, there is a lot of difficulty, but it doesn't matter. And we finish about 80 house. And when I say 80 house, the house is several family. It's more than sometimes 6 family, 7 family, it depends. And we work. Of course, we have problem, because my problem is a space problem. We need space for the children. They don't have any playground, any activity. And the school are not giving anything to this part, this imagination part, this physical part. So we try to make some solution, but little by little. It's like bubbles, I think. And we can show you how it was, how it's begun to be clear more now and more. But of course, we need a lot of work. It needs a lot of money. And when I say a lot of money, I believe deeply that the money is not the problem of Egypt. the money exists, but the cooperation doesn't exist. If we can imagine that all the big company of developing can put a small part, like what this company have done, a small part for a serious work. I wouldn't say a box, because if there is no system to do the work and we are going to use the same system, nothing will happen. But it's not the issue of the money. It's not I'm not convinced anymore. When people talk about problem of money, it's a kind of distribution, a kind of ability, what to put where. For me, the human being is the most important item. We don't have something more or something more rich than to keep a human being in a human environment. This is very expensive, because the opposite is more expensive.
The Arc Vision competition for women architects declared Dr. Mona Zakaria as one of the most established architects in the world.
In the end of December, some of the Italian who has been working with, helping us to financially sweat to make the pottery village, call me and they say there is this prize, and we for women doing architect women working in a social from a social point of view. And I felt there was, I have to put the papers and everything before the end of the year, and it was very short notice, and every architect woman has to present 10 projects. And we were completely in ourselves, and I said, 10 projects, oh. It's very strange, because in a second I forgot what we have been doing before ourselves. It's very strange. Anyway, we present the paper, and I think I cannot tell you a lot, because I didn't see all the work, the other work. They will do a kind of publication. But I think it's important for women, because in the social work, I am able to go inside all the house with all respect. In Old Cairo, most of the people were telling me, where is the photo of the people? In Old Cairo, an example, I promised the people not to show their inside house. It's not of it's a private work. It is their own private life. So when you work in social and you are a woman, it's easier to feel, it's easier to go, and it's easier to work with a woman, because usually, even in ourselves, women are more involved in the house than the men, of course. This is the only advantage, perhaps, for women. They can work in this social part, and it's very rich also, because you are taking more than you give. Believe me, I feel all the time that I take from people more than we give. I learn from them a lot. Sometimes it's difficult, sometimes it's not. It's a human relationship, and it has to be on a real human life, not we cannot go with this superior point of view that we are going to change. We are going to put some human touch, not change. Nobody can change a lot. It's long, very long term anyway. I cannot talk a lot because I didn't see the work itself. And of course, it's more important to see the work of the other for me, because there is a lot of idea coming from India, from Brazil, from society, or less of or more in the same problem of Egypt, especially I think India. This exchange didn't happen, and I'm waiting for the publication. But it's okay. It's nice. It's good. It gives some encouragement, because I cannot say that all the time we are very encouraged. From time to time, like all the human beings, we a little bit depressed, a little bit worried. But and the problem of architecture, every day it's a new project. The accumulation of the knowledge do things, of course, but with every project you have a new awareness, a new problem, and this is very frustrated sometimes, because you never feel that you have finished. Because if you finish this project, there is another problem, there is, and I think in ourselves we are like, we don't know, even with the people, I feel the shame sometimes, because we have to do some planning for the work, but there is people sometimes in another street, in another area. We will go, but when? And it's very difficult on a human level. But anyway, we will see. I have a boy and a girl. My daughter, she has been telling me all the time, I cannot work like you. No architecture. Architecture is a complete life. But now she is an architect. She's doing rehabilitation, and I'm proud of her because she has more talent, I would say, in a lot of things. But she say, you are my mother, you cannot judge me. But I think the role of a mother, I feel it with any, not any, but I feel this with Mariam working with me for this project. If there is a spiritual connection all the time when you are doing such work. It's not just paper, just no. There is a lot of things going, coming, worried, a lot of small problem. I think, and I will tell you something. Of course, it's important, your private life, but also you create during in Old Cairo. When I go, I feel that I'm going to my old family. It's very strange. In Asel, when I went, we got some problem and I was sad of this problem, so I couldn't go. I'm trying to react like a human being also, because they have to understand that, because there is, I would say, a lot of level of communication. Nobody can say, I do, I have done. It's all the time a small community. And everyone put, of course it has to be guided by one, of course. But everyone is putting something, and it is very important. And I think we don't have still in Egypt the culture of working in community and working with each other and working in group, even if it is small group, and this homogeneity of a group of work. But it will come, it will come.